you tell us the purpose of that crime, Tate? Is it just simply to keep the crowd away from what's going on?
Yes, it's a physical indicator to people to not cross that line or come into that area, and it would give us the authority to stop them if they did.
Yeah. Corporal, you also mentioned, this suspect is an armed stalking suspect. Any idea what he is armed with and how many weapons?
I believe it's a handgun, and I'm not too sure if there's anything more than that.
Okay, and at this point, you're not sure if that suspect actually fired at officers?
I am not sure about that, but the vehicle does look like it has a bullet hole through one of the windows.
Gotcha. And at this point, no information to indicate that there is somebody else inside that car, a passenger, somebody in the back seat?
No, there's nothing that I have, but I don't have every piece of the information at this point.
All right. Your advice to people who are on the roads there. I'm sure there's a lot of phone calls being made, letting family members, friends know what's going on. Basically, are they just stuck until this situation is resolved?
Yes. Also, you should look for information from the California Highway Patrol regarding detours, and also possibly from the Anaheim Police Department as far as alternate routes and where to go. And if you really don't have to be out somewhere, please don't. You won't put yourself in this gridlock situation, and help those who are already there get out of it.
Yeah, very good information. Corporal, is there anything else you'd like to add? Any information you'd like the public to know?
No, just stay out of the area if you absolutely can. And if you're on the freeway, please just stay inside your vehicle and then follow any instructions that my partners in the field have for you.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate your time during this very tense situation. We know your officers are out there doing everything they can to make this situation end peacefully. All right, let's check in with Mark again. You've got some new info for us.
Yeah, well, it's just that we've been discussing with the assignment desk, the details that the corporal had provided to us. Armed stalking suspect was what the description was, the want on this vehicle, and that does mesh with what would be considered criminal threats. It certainly could be how that was communicated to CHP. Happened at McKinley and Griffin Street in Corona. I was just working on mapping that out from this location here at the 91. I'm actually bringing it up on my map here, and I can show you if you come out to my screen. This is McKinley Street and Griffin Way in Corona, and if we zoom out, you can see we pass through directly west on the 91, and we end up down here. This is approximately right here, and I'll circle the area. It's about here where this pursuit has come to an end. And as the corporal had told us that those schools on lockdown, this is Crescent Elementary School along with Orange Unified Pre-K. They're both shelter in place right now. There has been no injuries or any incidents on the campus. This is just precautionary. There are police on the campus ensuring their safety. The kids there, no harm has come to them. Students are staying in their classes, but apparently buses and parents can pick up their kids if they want to. So those schools, though, are under a precautionary lockdown just because of the nature of how close they are to the freeway, not because this pursuit involved those schools in any way. But we do know now that the corporal did say that there appears to be a bullet hole in that vehicle, just as we had seen, Rachel. And also there is some indication that if SkyCal is ever able to get onto the other side of the vehicle, there may be a similar bullet hole on the other side, too. On the passenger side, we are getting some information that there might be two in total. But again, as the corporal had mentioned from Corona PD, there's no indication that shots were fired during this pursuit. So those may be something that happened earlier. It could have been a part of that stalking incident. We really don't know yet. But that is something that clearly this driver is wanted for, as we had suspected, armed and dangerous with a propensity to behave dangerously during the course of this pursuit.
Yeah, that was a great perspective you had when you showed us the map from where this pursuit started. Can you kind of gauge the distance between where it started and where they are stopped right now?
Yeah, I was actually going to do that. I got to use a different system in order to make that work, but I was just about to sort of do that myself and see. I'm going to guess that's probably let's see, what did we say? It was McKinley and Griffin in Corona. That is approximately 18 and a half miles
wow.
to the east. So on the 91, that was an 18 and a half mile. The Google Google Maps says it's about a 30-minute drive.
Yeah.
And that's, of course, dealing with traffic. And of course, also it's taking into account the enormous traffic backup here. So you could probably commute that a little bit quicker. But at least 18 miles this pursuit went and is now stopped here. Interestingly, the corporal also was unable to tell us why this driver stopped.
Right.
It seems like the indication was this driver just stopped. Don't know if he ran out of gas or if the car was disabled in some way, but not a pit maneuver, not a spike strip being used here, and not shots fired.
Yeah, wow. 18 and a half miles, that's a long way. And here we have a situation where the suspect has shut down both sides, the east and westbound lanes of the 91 freeway. A tense situation. And during this whole time, we have not seen the officers relax their stance at all. Still, weapons are pointed, obviously, because now we know that this driver, this suspect, is armed. The corporal from Corona PD telling us that they know that at least he has one handgun. So they're just trying to figure out exactly how well armed he is, how many weapons are inside that car. Unclear right now. They cannot confirm if there is more than one person in that vehicle. But again, that bullet hole in the back seat on the driver's side. So again, the major situation going on here is the traffic that is building continually as the standoff continues. Let's check in with Kalina to see how things are going.
Okay, so I've been communicating with CHP. We've been texting throughout the morning, trying to figure out if they're going to do anything else to try to alleviate some of the congestion that we're seeing, because again, the people who have been stuck in this have been here now for well over an hour, close to 2 hours at this point. So they are working on that. However, they have not put that in place just yet. We still have the closure between the 55 and Imperial Highway. They're working on figuring out a different location to try to divert traffic off of. And the surface streets surrounding the area, I still have them as alternate routes, but I do want to let you know they are jam-packed as well. But again, because the situation is ongoing and we're not quite sure when this will lift or be over, just avoid the 91 and the 55 for that matter in its entirety if you can. The 91 is stretching now from almost away from the 71 as you head in the westbound direction, and then the eastbound traffic is building away from the 57. We also have the northbound 55 to the eastbound 91 transition road closed off, so you can't transition that way. Now, an option would be the 241. However, reminder, that's a toll road, so just keep that in mind. And then the other option would be the 60, and it looks like drivers are going that route, taking the northbound 57 to get on the 60 because we are seeing an increase in traffic congestion there. But you can go ahead and take your surface streets. Orange Thorpe, La Palma or Knoll Ranch Road are also surface street options that we are seeing congestion. But again, it'll help you get around the full freeway closure that we're seeing right now on the 91 in Anaheim Hills. Rachel?
All right, Kalina, I appreciate you continually checking on this for our commuters out there. Earlier when we were speaking with a corporal, he told us that right now negotiators from the Corona Police Department are indeed on the phone with the suspect, trying to get him or her to surrender peacefully. So we know that they know who this is. The question is when, if and when, this suspect will agree to surrender and end the situation. The corporal also telling us that unfortunately there is no timeline as to when officers will go in and end the situation. They're going to keep this going as long as possible. Of course, safety is the #1 priority, not only for the officers, the public right there, and of course the suspect as well. So as we continue to cover the situation, let's go to meteorologist Amber Lee for a look at our weather, because of course this is the Memorial Day holiday weekend.
Yeah, look at all those people just standing on the freeway, just waiting to see or watching to see what's happening. All right, so take a look. As you can tell, things have been a little bit gray, more gloomy across Southern California, and this is the reason why. That marine layer continues to get thicker as we head into the next couple of days. So you can see our Blue Ridge camera usually is pretty pretty clear in this direction, but you'll notice that all the clouds have banked up against the foothills here. So we are definitely looking at a really thick marine influence, and that is why things are gray at the moment. It's going to be one of those days where we have the slow burn off because we have a stronger sea breeze. We're starting to see some of the clearing take place in the Oxnard area. I just popped my head outside of our broadcast studio here in Studio City, still overcast, but we're starting to see some of the clouds slowly thin out, but it's going to take some time for us to see some sunshine depending on where you live. It's going to be that gradual sunshine. You can see Long Beach starting to see a little bit of that sunshine peeking through right now. Here's a look at those current conditions in Riverside, 60 degrees. And then as we head into this long holiday weekend, you're going to fire up that grill. It looks like Sunday and Monday it's going to be more of that picture perfect Memorial Day type of weekend for us, because we're looking at a shrinking marine layer, and then our temperatures will gradually start to warm up by Monday. We're topping out in the mid 80s. This is what we're watching right now with that thicker marine layer. Not only are we dealing with a strong sea breeze, but we're seeing limited to no beach clearing today. This will continue into tomorrow. There's even a small chance right now that we could see some afternoon showers over the mountaintops as a lot of this moisture from the north kind of just pushes past us. So it's the trough that's causing a lot of the cooler temperatures today. And then we're looking at a warm-up taking place Sunday. So that's something that we can expect. It's not going to be a complete wash this long holiday weekend. Just know that temperatures will be in the low 70s today and tomorrow for LA and Orange County, 71 by Sunday. This is that transition day where we slowly start to warm up as that marine layer shrinks. Memorial Day Monday, we're dealing with temperatures closer to normal, and then we're talking about above average temperatures by the latter part of next week. For the valley, 73 today, warming up to the mid 70s Sunday, closer to 80s on Memorial Day, and then 80s arrive on Tuesday. The Inland Empire, you're actually going to see temperatures in the 80s by the time we head into Memorial Day. And then for the high deserts, lots of sunshine, winds really picking up today and tomorrow. We're talking about temperatures in the 70s, warming to the 80s on Sunday, and then 90s as we head into the middle of next week. Mountain communities, lots of winds today too, upper 50s. There is a chance of showers, and then for the beaches, upper 60s. Rachel?
Amber, thank you so much. And if you are just joining us here on KCAL News at 10, we continue to cover breaking news. You are looking at live pictures of a standoff on the 91 freeway, shutting down the east and westbound lanes. This is at the 55. Let's check in with Assignment Manager Mark Liu for the latest on this. Mark.
Yeah, right. Rachel, you know, as you had discussed, this standoff now happening almost 2 hours into the closure of the 91 freeway in both directions. Elements of the special response team of the Corona PD are there dealing with a driver described as an armed stalking suspect who refuses to comply with officers' demand, led officers on a pursuit starting at about 8 a.m. and then heading 18 miles from the initiation point at McKinley and Griffin, all in Corona, all the way here to the westbound 91 just off of Lakeview Avenue. This has closed the freeway in both directions. The traffic backup is enormous in both directions right now. And we had just recently got a phone briefing from Corporal Tobias Karubakalis with the Corona Police Department, who discussed that this driver at least is communicating on the phone with a crisis negotiating team from Corona PD. And as I was looking up information, I was able to find direct information about the special response team that is dealing with this driver right now. If you come out to my screen here at the assignment desk, I can show you that there is a description on Corona PD's website that describes the very thing that the corporal was talking about, the special response team that is part of Corona PD. You can see it here. This is their description. It's comprised of 3 teams: a crisis negotiation team, an entry team, and a precision marksmanship team in a vehicle exactly like we see down there right now. As a matter of fact, I am certain that the vehicle depicted in the webpage is one of those vehicles that is on station there. And they go on to describe that this unit has established to provide specialized support in handling critical field operations, where intense negotiations and or special tactical deployment methods beyond the capability of field officers appears to be necessary. This is a textbook example of when this special response team would be used here. I am certain the crisis negotiation team, the entry team, and the precision marksman team are probably all on station down there, Rachel, working in concert to try to get that driver to surrender.
That's great information right there to give us some perspective on the resources that are on the ground there. There are 2 of the special response team units down there, actually 3. 2 of them have the suspect car sandwiched. And that makes sense, Mark. You know, the things that this team does includes crisis negotiating. We know that's going on the phone at least. And no doubt they're trying to negotiate with him on the ground as well. So we've got that covered. There's an entry team specializing, if necessary, to make entry into that vehicle safely, right, for both parties. And of course, the precision marksmanship, if necessary, they will have to engage.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, those are very likely the officers armed with long rifles down there. They are essentially snipers or precision marksmen, as you had said. And these teams, they travel together, they work together because special response teams, these armored vehicles, they are called almost always to deal with subjects that are refusing to comply, maybe in a barricaded situation. Mm-hmm. So this is what they train for. They're very methodical. They take things very tactically. They are able to respond quickly and effectively, but they would much rather do this in a planned, methodical way to ensure safety for everyone. One of the primary goals here is to take that suspect into custody with no injuries to anyone, the suspect, law enforcement, or civilians. So they are, unfortunately, they have to take their time doing this. This is what is causing a large backup here. It is essentially better to do this safely where no one gets hurt and unfortunately inconvenience a huge number of drivers here, but that is the cost of dealing with a situation that is dangerous. And it does look like this freeway is slowly clearing out of vehicles as cars go the wrong way on the on-ramp here. I'm guessing this is probably, I'm not sure which street that is. Oh, it is probably Imperial Highway. I believe that that's the Imperial Highway on-ramp and off-ramp across the Santa Ana River that drivers are turning around. And what you're seeing there with SkyCal in the center of your screen is Crescent Elementary. The corporal from Corona PD said that this school, and along with it, the Orange Unified Pre-K that is there, is in a shelter-in-place situation, not because that these schools have anything to do with the pursuit, just because of the proximity and the fact that they have armed officers and an armed driver here. They want to make sure that those kids are safe, so they are staying in the classrooms. There are PD on scene, and parents can come and pick up their students if they so choose.
Yeah, that's right, Mark. As Corporal Tobias Kurubakayas mentioned earlier, safety, of course, is the #1 priority. He told us there is no timeline as to when the situation will be resolved. They want to make sure everyone is safe because we do know that this suspect, he or she, is armed with at least 1 handgun. The original want on this suspect was criminal threats, right, Mark, out of the city of Corona, and they called him an armed stalking suspect. So obviously taking no chances because the suspect is armed. And we are also trying to work with law enforcement to confirm exactly where that bullet hole came from that we saw in the back rear window. The corporal was not sure when we spoke with him on the phone whether that was during the pursuit, whether any shots were fired. So we're working to get that information exactly if and when that bullet hole was made. But we do know, again, he is armed. Not clear if there is another passenger, if there is somebody else inside that car. It's hard to see in the backseat because it is heavily tinted. But again, we see, as Mark pointed out, 2 vehicles from Corona PD's special response team sandwiching in that suspect's car, one on the left there standing by. The big story here, of course, is the traffic backup caused by the situation. And Kalina has been checking in with the CHP for the latest on that. Kalina.
Hi. Okay, so we first went on air with this as far as the traffic situation was concerned right around the 9 o'clock mark. And I do know, just before 10 o'clock is when Amber and I noticed that bullet hole, Rachel, that you just referenced. So between that time period of that hour between 9 a.m. and 10 a.m. is where we're going to really look in to see and get that information, whether or not that came from this situation. As far as the traffic is concerned, crews have issued a signaler a while back. This usually signalers just mean, hey, it's going to be here for 30 minutes. We very well know this will be here for quite some time. And that big black patch that you're seeing on the map, whenever you see that on our next traffic maps, that's an indicator that the roadway is shut down. You can't get through. So eastbound and westbound, we've been saying this between the 55 and Imperial Highway, that is closed. We had a wide shot earlier where you could see drivers going off and being diverted off on the area, but you could also see drivers turning around on their own. I reached out to CHP to see if they were going to set anything up to, in fact, direct traffic that way to then allow them to go the wrong way. I have not heard back just yet. I also want to let you know that the northbound 55 to the eastbound 91 transition road is also closed. So you can still see traffic is building northbound as well. Now the alternate route, which was the 57 and the 241, both are also slowing down northbound as well. However, they will help you get around this closure because, again, this crucial artery to Southern California, the 91, you can't get through Anaheim Hills here. So the 60 freeway in both directions is an option for you. You will see traffic, but again, it's open. You could even take the 10 or the 210, just depends on how far you want to go. Orange Thorpe is also an option for you. That is starting to see congestion because that's a surface street option, and a lot of people who live in the area are familiar with that. La Palma is also starting to bunch up, but again, it's open and you can take that, or Knoll Ranch Road is another option as well. I will keep an eye on this. I will let you know if CHP is going to, in fact, set anything up to turn drivers around. Right now, drivers are just doing that on their own, which is extremely dangerous. And then we're also having traffic being diverted off at the Imperial Highway exit there. But I'll keep an eye on this for you. You can see, Rachel, I'm going to toss it back to you because K9 is out and officers are continuing to, surround this area.
All right, Kalina, appreciate your updates. Yes, as Kalina said, K9's ready to act if necessary, as well as the officers who continue their stance, having their weapons pointed at this vehicle. As Kalina was talking, Mark, SkyCal zoomed in into the driver's side, and it seemed like the driver was kind of animated, kind of rocking back and forth.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was exactly my assessment as well. This driver, hopefully still on the phone, rocking back and forth in an agitated state. I noticed that when SkyCal zoomed in with their excellent camera, the digital zoom that's so powerful that you can see those details. I also noticed that the armored vehicle that's at the front end of that blue car is actually from Anaheim Police. So we have the assistance of another specialized response team from an allied agency to Corona PD, and that is, of course, Anaheim PD, which operates a very similar tactical response team. It's a slightly different modified version of that same armored vehicle. But then the one that you see on the bottom of your screen also is Corona Police. That so there's two from Corona and one from Anaheim, and then, of course, a large contingent of officers from the CHP. So three law enforcement agencies working in conjunction here to try and get this driver to surrender. You can see these officers from Corona PD. This is probably the precision marksmanship team that we discussed before. They have their long rifles at the ready on either side of that vehicle. They are ready, both of those officers ready should that driver try to come out in an aggressive stance on the driver's side or the passenger side. This is a textbook example of covering all of the angles here. And of course, the Anaheim police officer that is in the driver's seat of that armored vehicle on the front is protected. The glass on the front is heavily bulletproof. They have no danger. And also, I'm sure that those marksmen are very, very good at sharpshooting should they need to open fire. Hopefully that is not what they want to do here. They want this driver to surrender peacefully. But should this driver make any aggressive moves, those officers are prepared to use deadly force in order to bring this to a close.
Absolutely, Mark. And as we take a live look at the close-up picture of the driver right there, correct me if I'm wrong. If I see correctly, the suspect has the cell phone in one hand and kind of gesturing with the other, and we got it confirmed from the corporal earlier that they are on the phone with the suspect, negotiating with him or her, trying to get him or her to surrender. So I believe that's what we saw when we saw that close-up look. In the left hand, there was a cell phone, and with the right hand kind of gesturing as if he or she was, talking and having a conversation. So we do know from the corporal that there is a phone conversation going on between law enforcement and the suspect. And we know from the information Mark provided us about their special response team that there is also a negotiator on the ground as well. So they've got this well covered in terms of negotiators, any kind of special marksmanship that may need to be used in this situation if all else fails. But the corporal earlier reiterating that they want to resolve this peacefully and safety is the #1 priority. And we saw earlier that there were a number of people actually out with their cell phones rolling on the situation, which of course we know many people do. But the corporal asking those folks who are on the freeway, although tempting to get out and record that video, please stay in your car in case anything does happen and in case force needs to be used, because This, although is long-lasting and ongoing, it is a dangerous situation because this suspect, we know, is armed with at least one handgun, according to that corporal. Unclear if there are more weapons in the car. Unclear at this point if there's more than one person besides the driver and the suspect. So we are continuing to work all that information. You're looking at the picture that Mark provided about the special response team. And we continue to cover this live over the 91 freeway. West and eastbound lanes closed at the 55. As the standoff continues, we do know that Corona PD initiated this pursuit around 8 a.m. Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, at McKinley and Griffin in Corona to get this suspect to stop. Wanted for making criminal threats. He or she is an armed stalking suspect, known to be armed with at least one handgun. Right now, again, we are zooming in on that picture. You see the driver right there, kind of motioning back and forth, possibly continuing to negotiate with law enforcement on the phone. So, Mark, any new information for us?
No, the assignment desk continues to cooperate with, try to communicate with Corona PD, Anaheim PD, and the CHP. This is still at a standstill. This is all really in the hands, Rachel, of that very specialized professional negotiation team that trains for this very thing. Corona PD, they are ready for these types of operations. This special response team, as we had talked about, the crisis negotiation team, a critical component where these delicate negotiations with drivers who sometimes may not have be in a position where they can think rationally sometimes. Right. And this is really an incredible science that they engage in to try and get drivers to surrender. But, one of the big problems, though, dealing law enforcement they have right now is what to do with all of the people that are on the freeway still. It has caused an enormous backup and the problems of getting those people off the freeway and where to go. For more on that, I want to talk to Kalina Astrinos now in our traffic center. Kalina, what can you tell us about the traffic situation because of the standoff down there?
Okay, so we just mapped it out. Even though the roadway is entirely shut down, we mapped it out so you would be able to see that it is a 2-hour drive in the westbound direction. So obviously you don't want to take the 91 if that's an option for you, but if for some reason you were to, you'll be stuck for 2 hours, possibly even longer. That's on the westbound side, and then eastbound we have that really heavy backup too. So a signaler has been issued. It's been here for a very long time already. It's between Imperial and the 55, where we have all lanes shut down. The transition road northbound 55 to the eastbound 91 is also closed, and you're seeing pretty much all of your alternate routes be impacted in some capacity. That includes the 241. That includes, of course, the 57, the 60 as well, the surface streets surrounding the area. But I just want to emphasize all of your alternate routes are open. We don't have closures on them, so they're much better than getting stuck on the 91 or having to kind of maneuver. So Orangethorpe, La Palma, Knoll Ranch Road, the 60, the 10, the 210, the 241 are all options to help you navigate around this closure. Rachel?
All right, Kalina, thank you so much. To recap everything that is going on, we continue to cover this major shutdown of the 91 freeway in both directions, east and westbound lanes. This suspect law enforcement initiated this pursuit of a criminal threat suspect, a suspect who is wanted for stalking out of the city of Corona. This began at 8 a.m. This pursuit lasting about 18 miles, according to Mark, who kind of mapped it all out for us. He or she, for some reason, came to rest here on the 91 freeway, and since then, for over an hour and a half so far, has been sitting on the freeway, sandwiched between these two armored cars from Corona PD and Anaheim PD. Obviously, the suspect not going anywhere. Corona PD confirms with us that this suspect is armed with at least one handgun. So obviously they are taking this very seriously, knowing that this suspect is armed and dangerous. And of course, the original want was making criminal threats. A stalking suspect, they describe him as. SkyCal showing us pictures of possibly a driver getting out of the car. You see that cars are starting to turn around on the freeway there. Not sure if this is being advised or if this is something that drivers are doing on their own. Understandably, there is a lot of frustration. Mark, what can you tell us about what we're looking at right now?
I mean, this is just probably the most frustrating thing possible for drivers here this morning. As we said, this pursuit started in the 8 a.m. hour, and it ended up here on the 91 freeway after coming all the way from McKinley and Griffin in Corona. And then it stopped here and caused this enormous backup, and drivers in the 8 a.m. hour were probably on their way to work and have not been able to get off of this freeway. And on their own, over the last 60 to 70 minutes, we have seen drivers turn around and head back towards the Imperial Highway off-ramp here. And that is essentially what they've been doing on their own. So, Rachel, very frustrating for these drivers this morning.
All right, and we are now going to continue to cover this breaking news. It will be continue to cover on KCAL News at 11 a.m.
This is KCAL News, Los Angeles.
Welcome to KCAL News at 11 on CBS Los Angeles and streaming on CBS News Los Angeles. I'm Sheba Turk, and we are following breaking news this morning. A major freeway shut down on this holiday getaway weekend. A standoff has the 91 freeway shut down in both directions in Anaheim Hills. Let's get straight over to assignment manager Mark Lou at the desk to kick off our coverage. This has been going on for hours, Mark.
It really has. I mean, we believe that this freeway has been stopped from at least 8:20 this morning after Corona PD went into pursuit of an armed stalking suspect in their city. It got on the 91 freeway, headed westbound, and stopped here at the 91 in Anaheim Hills just before Lakeview. And that is where it has remained for the better part of 2.5 hours now. Now, the vehicle that you see in the center of your screen there, that small blue sedan sandwiched between an armored vehicle from Corona PD and an armored vehicle from Anaheim PD, has been there since about 8:30. The driver inside refusing to get out or comply. But the good news, Sheba, is that a corporal from the Corona Police Department did confirm to us on the phone that that driver is on the cell phone communicating with a crisis negotiating team from Corona PD. So at least there is communication with the driver, but we have not seen any movement or efforts by that driver to get out of the car and surrender. Now, the special response team by Corona PD are the ones in that black armored vehicle. Corona PD is operating those two on the right side, Anaheim PD, the one on the left, but there is a precision marksmanship team team and an entry team along with those negotiating officers down there, ready for anything that this driver may try to do. At some point, Sheba, I will tell you that CHP did have information that this driver was driving on the wrong side of the road during this pursuit, so very aggressive and reckless driving there. And we have also noted that at the rear driver's side window of that blue car, there appears to be a bullet hole in the window. Now, we asked the corporal spokesperson from the Corona PD about that. He had no information about why that bullet hole would be there. They had no information that either their officers or this driver had opened fire during the pursuit. But the corporal did say that they believe that driver is armed with a handgun. And so that is why they are handling this as an armed and dangerous situation. And of course, there is an enormous amount of law enforcement on the westbound lanes of the 91, which has also necessitated the closure of the eastbound 91. So the 91 closed in both directions. An enormous number of people were stuck on the freeway, and for the last hour, we have seen drivers turn around, head back east in the westbound lanes to get off on the next off-ramp, which I believe is Imperial Highway, in order just to get on with their day, as they were stuck there since 8 a.m.
There's no timeline on this. We know we spoke with Corona PD and they were saying there's really no timeline here. So understandable that the drivers who've been sitting there for almost 2 hours are starting to turn around. The scene has looked almost exactly the same also, Mark, for these past 2 hours. We really haven't seen much movement here. I know at one point SkyCal kind of zoomed in on the driver there and they seem to be moving their hands or flailing, saying something. We do know, as you said, that they're on the phone with negotiators from Corona PD, but still refusing to comply. Of course, this is causing a traffic mess during the Memorial Day weekend, which was already going to be really rough. So let's get straight over to Kalina. Again, the 91 freeway in Anaheim shut down. Kalina, in both directions, and these drivers are turning around because there's nowhere else to go.
Yes, and we've seen this in the past when it comes to full freeway closures like this, where drivers just essentially are trying to figure out how to get out of it themselves, right? Especially if they've been stuck here for as long as they have. I want to take you to the map. Whenever you see a black patch like this, it's an indicator that we have something shut down on the roadway. In this case, it's the 91 in both directions between the 55 and Imperial Highway because of what you're looking at. We have the split screen still going for you. SkyCal on one side, the next traffic maps on the other, and that backup in both directions of the 91 just continues to build. Regardless of the drivers turning around right now, we're still seeing about an hour and a half to 2 hours on the westbound side of the 91, and we actually have a crash before that too. So we're going to see a really tight ride out of Corona into Anaheim Hills where that closure is, and then on the eastbound side leaving the 57. Also a reminder, the northbound 55 to the eastbound 91, that transition road is closed. Traffic is being diverted off at Imperial Highway. That's that kind of snake-like visual that you're looking at with drivers getting out of the way. And then you're also seeing here that drivers are now turning around. I reached out to CHP to see if they were going to do anything about this in the sense of setting up some type of additional perimeter or possibly allowing drivers to turn around and assessing and assisting in that. They were not able to give me a definitive answer. So we're just seeing drivers take matters into their own hands and turn around. Now, as far as your alternate routes are concerned, you can take the 60. We do have traffic building there because drivers are going for that to get around the 91. So they're taking the 57, which you can see that traffic backup northbound, and then they're hopping on the 60. However, it's an open freeway. It's an open roadway as opposed to what you're seeing on the 91. You could also take the 210 or 10. That's a bit of a stretch, but those are also open options for you heading east and westbound. The surface street option would be Orange Thorpe, La Palma, or Knoll Ranch Road, which we are seeing backups building there as well, especially because drivers are really familiar with this area and it's been jam-packed for the past hour. However, again, those are open roadways, and then a toll road option for you would be the 241. That'll help you get around that 55. I will let you know as soon as I hear from CHP as far as any additional closures or possibly guiding and assisting drivers out of this area. But right now, that I don't have that information just yet. Sheba.
And, you know, Mark, I also wanted to talk about the school lockdowns that we're seeing. Crescent Elementary and Crescent Primary both on lockdown because they're very close to this scene.
Yes, I was exactly just going to bring that up. Sheba, Kalina was talking very much about how this is impacting an enormous number of drivers, but it's not just the freeway that is being impacted by the standoff. As you had mentioned, Corona PD and Anaheim PD have placed 2 schools very close to this barricade situation on lockdown. It's Crescent Elementary and the Orange Unified Pre-K and Crescent Primary School. If you come out to my map, I'm going to show you where that is. I'll give you an illustration. So what we're looking at right here, this is the 91 freeway across the middle of your screen right here. And in the middle of this pursuit standoff right here, that's where the car is currently parked. And this area right here, that's Crescent Elementary. You can see how close it is to where that pursuit standoff is. It's basically just down the way. Now, there are no children in any danger here at the school. There's been no injuries or anything like that, but out of an abundance of caution, because the driver is armed and dangerous and they have a special response team down there, they have placed this school on a shelter-in-place lockdown, so all of the children at the school are remaining in their classrooms. Teachers are with them. They will not go outside. Parents can pick up their kids at Crescent Elementary if they want, but the children there are remaining in class. Now, the other thing that I want to show you on the map is if I zoom out, I can show you approximately where this pursuit started. The 91 heads east all the way over here. This is about 18 miles on the 91, and it was here at McKinley and Griffin in Corona that the corporal from Corona PD said this started at about 8 a.m. Their officers went into pursuit of an armed stalking suspect, making criminal threats. We don't exactly know what the nature of those criminal threats were or who this person was stalking, but it was egregious enough that Corona police officers went into pursuit of that driver. It headed west here to the 91, where that car came to a stop right there on the westbound lanes of the freeway and has been stopped for the better part of now 2.5 hours, sandwiched between an armored vehicle from Corona police in the rear and an armored vehicle from Anaheim police in the front. That third armored vehicle in the lower right-hand side of the screen, also from Corona police and their specialized tactics team at the ready there. We have seen those officers with long rifles on either side of that Corona PD armored vehicle, ready if that driver should exit in an aggressive capacity, either on the driver or the passenger side. At times, we have seen those rifles aimed directly at the car. Other times now, they're in a more relaxed position. So we do know that the negotiating team continues to talk to this driver, hopefully getting them, convincing them to surrender and come out peacefully, Sheba.
I just saw SkyCal also looked like they went to some of the officers who are a bit far back from the blue sedan. It looked like they were placing a drone on the ground. Have you seen that in use?
We have not seen a drone so far, either aerial or a tracked drone. We have not seen that used so far today. If they are going to use an aerial drone, this could be an important bit of intel for them to look in the car, get eyes on the driver. We do know that there is a police officer in the driver's side seat of that Anaheim armored vehicle. So that driver definitely does have eyes on the driver of the blue car. But for what the drone could be used for, we're not sure. They may need to get eyes on the back of the car, perhaps, or some other component that we're not aware of. But now it looks like, incredibly, most or all of the civilians that were on the westbound 91 have been cleared off of the freeway. This is probably a great relief to both those drivers and also law enforcement, as they do not have to deal with any other people in that capacity. And there's a little bit more safety now for them to operate there. I think everybody just turned around and went the wrong way on the freeway and made it back to Imperial Highway and got off.
Yeah, folks who are watching this, we've been seeing a similar scene really for 2 hours now, as the suspect has been talking with negotiators from Corona PD. We've learned on the phone. They're on the phone with this suspect. It is an armed stalking suspect who is wanted for criminal threats. We did learn from Corona PD as well that they believe that this suspect has one handgun on them. As we noted earlier, there is a bullet hole. You can kind of see it where we're looking right now on the back driver's side window, but we haven't got any information on where that bullet hole came from or what time in this chase or pursuit, if it even happened during the pursuit, that took place. And as you can see from here, the suspect is refusing to comply. This chase started around 8 o'clock this morning in Corona. As Mark's been telling us, took about 18 miles to stop here on the 91 freeway in Anaheim, which has been shut down in both directions for about 2 hours. So that blue sedan is what we're focused on. You can see officers have kind of been in the same position for a really long time now, sandwiched between these two armored vehicles. You can see they have their weapons pointed at the driver, who is on the phone with Corona PD. And further behind them is that traffic that has just been piling up. People were already preparing for really rough backups this Memorial Day weekend, and this is how it's starting off. We've seen many of those drivers turn around to get off the interstate. Completely understandable. Some of them have been on there for 2 hours as we just wait for the situation to continue to unfold. All right, so we are going to continue to monitor this situation, and we'll let you know as soon as we have any updates. If you are headed out, though, the 91 freeway in Anaheim is shut down in both directions. You'll want to take an alternate route. This is between 55 and Imperial Highway, and we will check back in on this situation shortly. In other news, a woman is dead after being hit by a Metrolink train in Burbank this morning. This is near North Buena Vista Street and Van Owen. Metrolink says there were 39 passengers on board train number 100 at the time. None of them were hurt. They were all loaded onto a bus to get to the next stop. Train service is delayed in the area while the investigation continues. One man is lucky to be alive this morning. Police say he lit a cigarette inside of his SUV and set off an explosion.
It just felt like at first as it shaking the houses and an earthquake rattled the windows, but it was gone as soon as it started.
Well, take a look at this. The fire inside exploded the SUV. It sent debris flying across the parking lot in Van Nuys last night. Officers tell us the man had several small propane canisters inside the SUV at the time. Now, fortunately, he only suffered minor injuries and is expected to be okay. Well, things are calm at UCLA this morning after another pro-Palestinian encampment was cleared from campus, but not without confrontation. As we showed you yesterday, this started with pro-Palestinian protesters trying to set up an encampment outside Kirchhoff Hall. Police moved in quickly and broke it up. Despite the order to disperse, protesters then moved to Dodd Hall and barricaded themselves inside for several hours. Protesters eventually left the building. Officials say law enforcement and other security personnel continue to be on campus to help promote safety and actively monitor conditions. Well, still ahead, how about a new furry friend for the holiday weekend? We'll tell you about a big adoption event. That's when we come back. And Paul Diano's full next weather forecast is also ahead.